Good evening and thank you once again for choosing KBC Channel 1. We got details about what has been shaping the news today, from general news to sports and business, contained in our comprehensive news bulletin, plus the latest on the case on misuse of funds on the Rio 2016 Olympics against the former sports CS Hassan Wario. Will be telling you what is happening and what this case is all about, plus other matters contained tonight.
Absolutely. The outcry by motorists as regards the rise in the cost of fuel, and also tonight the CBC. You saw the response by the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Education, CS Professor Magoha, as regards CBC. But today, with a ting of change a bit, and we'll be talking about special schools, special needs. And we have the Secretary General of the Kenya Union of Special Needs Education Teachers, who is with us in studio, Mr. James Torome, who is the Secretary General of that union, and we'll be talking about CBC. How different is it when it comes to issues of training the normal schools and the ones that have special needs? Are there challenges they're facing as their counterparts in, this other regular education system? And we'll be talking about that in a bit. But first things first, the highlights. Seeking answers over fuel prices.
Senate summons both petroleum and energy cabinet secretaries as Matatu operators threaten to switch off engines.
Guilty as charged.
Former sports CS Hassan Wario to be sentenced tomorrow over misuse of Rio 2016 Olympics funds.
There's been increased vaccination. The economies are rebounding much easier, much better, and we thought we could play a part as private sector.
And given a green light.
Private hospitals to begin administering COVID-19 jabs free of charge. Once again, a very warm welcome. Karen Kibet and Cynthia Nyamai will be joining us a little bit later, and Wangeshi is our sign language interpreter tonight.
My name is John Jacob Kioria. Welcome to the broadcast. And Senate Speaker Kenneth Lusaka has summoned Petroleum Cabinet Secretary John Munyes and his energy counterpart Charles Keter to appear before senators on Tuesday next week to explain the high fuel prices.
In the directive, Lusaka said the two cabinet secretaries have to appear in person to field questions from all senators. This comes hours after the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority increased fuel prices to a record high that has been criticized by the public.
On Tuesday evening, the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority announced record high fuel prices that has been criticized by the private sector and members of the public, who say it will drive up the cost of living.
Our value chain is very dependent on transport. So whether it's the cost of an air ticket, whether it's the cost of delivering cabbages to your hotel, whether it's the cost of transporting that guest from here to the safari circuit, so the impact will be very huge.
Wednesday afternoon, Kericho Senator Aaron Cheruiyot raised the issue in Senate, seeking to have Energy Cabinet Secretary and EPRA appear before the Senate to explain the high cost of petroleum products in the country.
If you consider the price of fuel as it docks in Mombasa vis-a-vis the price that Kenyans pay at the pump station, which tells you that the bulk of the payments that we are making as Kenyans is actually taxes.
Back in 2013, the cost of fuel in this country was 67 shillings. Now, 135 shillings a litre. Seriously. And the salaries of most people have not gone up. What are we saying?
Today, I could not even send my driver somewhere because the power, the electricity, the fuel bill is so high that even whoever is earning whatever amount of money cannot afford it anymore. What about these people who are at the grassroots, who cannot manage even to put food on the table?
An increment of fuel, the Matatu owners normally transfer the burden to passengers, to border passengers, and many others, Mr. Speaker.
And Senate Speaker Kenneth Lusaka made a ruling.
Honorable Senators, this is a thorny matter, but I want to give this direction that the Committee on Energy will spearhead invitation of the ministry and all the other stakeholders, but order. They will summon the minister on Tuesday, and the whole house is invited to be here, and the meeting must be held here on Tuesday next week. It's so directed.
Following the presentations that have come from the floor, particularly from Senator Cheriot and Senator Nyamunga, that you invite the twin ministers of petroleum and energy, so that they can also answer questions on the issue of escalating electricity costs in this country, so that we can deal with both petroleum and electricity, energy and petroleum. Senator Munez and Charles Keter, both former senators.
Actually, it's the twin ministries, Minister of Petroleum and the Minister of Energy. And the CSS must appear in person. It is so directed.
Benson Rioba reporting for Prime Edition.
Interestingly, the 8 shillings will be pushed to you, the consumer. It's interesting to see the House that is supposed to put measures to ensure this doesn't happen, summoning the cabinet secretaries. But well, former Sports Cabinet Secretary Hassan Wario has been found guilty of misuse of public funds in the Rio 2016 Olympics. Wario and former National Olympic Committee of Kenya Deputy Treasurer Stephen Arap Soy are found guilty by the Anti-Corruption Court for abuse of office and embezzlement of public funds. Wario will now be detained at the Gigiri police station until Thursday, when he will be sentenced.
Former Sports CS Hassan Wario becomes the first high-ranking cabinet secretary to be found guilty by a court of law in the post-2010 constitution. Wario will spend the night at Gigiri police station to await his sentence on Thursday. The former Sports CS was found guilty alongside former NOC Deputy Treasurer Stephen Arap Soy.
The accused persons had the responsibility to guard the funds to avoid wastage. They failed to do so. The socio-economic impact of their action meant that the accused persons mismanaged in Kenya, leading to loss of public funds, equally demoralizing the athletes who could not access the funds in no time in preparation for the games.
Chief Magistrate Elizabeth Juma said the court had proven Wario had a role in the embezzlement of funds allocated to the National Olympic Committee of Kenya (NOC) to oversee the welfare of Kenyan representatives to the 2016 Games in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. According to the court, 88.6 million shillings meant to buy air tickets for team members was instead taken by ministry officials.
Number one was payment of allowance. Number two, inclusion of 4 medical persons. There was also double payment of NOC officials. The tickets were procured, paid for but not utilized.
4 other officials who had been charged alongside the two, who include former PS Richard Ekai, Haron Komen, Francis Paul and Patrick Kimathi, were acquitted of all charges for lack of sufficient evidence. Elsewhere, former Kemri boss Davy Koech has been ordered to pay a fine of 19.6 million shillings after he was convicted and found guilty of fraudulently acquiring public property. Anti-corruption magistrate Victor Wakumile, in his judgment, found the former boss guilty of corruptly acquiring 19.6 million shillings belonging to the Kenya Medical Research Institute in 2006, money earmarked for research.
Before this honorable court, that they be allowed to pay the fine which the prosecution, Your Honor, has an issue with in installments.
For Prime Edition, I'm Ben Troinjue.
Now, away from the corridors of justice to matters COVID-19, 446 people have tested positive for COVID-19 from a sample size of 6,406 tested in the last 24 hours. Consequently, the positivity rate now stands at 7%. According to the Ministry of Health, the youngest is a 2-week-old infant and the oldest is 101 years. So far, 244,826 people have tested positive, while cumulative tests conducted are 2,470,865. In the last 24 hours, 459 patients have been discharged, 331 from home-based care and isolation, and 128 from various health facilities. As of Tuesday, COVID-19 had claimed the lives of 4,949 people after 21 more deaths were reported from late facility record audit in the month of September 2021. Globally, over 225.9 million people have been infected, while more than 4.65 million have died. This is according to Johns Hopkins University. Now, moving on, private health facilities will now begin administering privately procured COVID-19 jabs to Kenyans free of charge in an effort by the government to increase its vaccination points nationwide and capture more people. The Ministry of Health, through the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, is also set to supply private companies willing to have their staff vaccinated with the jabs at an affordable cost. Purity Museo with that report.
The government's plan to vaccinate 10 million people against COVID-19 by the end of this year and 30 million by 2020 received a major boost as the Kenya Private Sector Alliance KEPSA now commits to partner with the Minister of Health in ensuring more people are inoculated against the deadly COVID-19.
Where there's been increased vaccination, the economies are rebounding much easier, much better, and we're seeing more jobs getting created. We're seeing less deaths, less sick people, and we thought we could play a part as private sector.
KEPSA Chief Executive Officer Carol Kariuki reassuring free vaccination services for all workers in the private sector.
Vaccines are free of charge. Remember, the companies are putting the money together to vaccinate the employees and the employees' families, and some of it going to the communities around.
To scale up the vaccination drive, the Minister of Health has further identified a number of private hospitals in the country that will administer the jab to Kenyans free of charge.
They are actually privileged. We have Nairobi Women's Hospital, but we have Avenue, Metropolitan, Nairobi Women's, MP Shah, Gertrude's, Meridian, and Karen Hospital. Those are the first ones that we are working with right now, and others will join in as we go along.
Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Mercy Mwangangi, who spoke during official rollout of private sector's COVID-19 vaccination drive, further said the ministry was considering supplying the Johnson & Johnson jabs to pastoralist counties owing to their migration tendency.
J&J is a special vaccine because we are considering having it allocated to perhaps migrant communities, distant communities where people may have challenges coming for their second dose. And so there's a bit of logistic planning that has to happen in that area. There's a bit of, should I say, rationing of doses that we need to do so that we don't also have issues of expiry.
She expressed concern over low second jab uptake by Kenyans, warning it would predispose them to health complications posed by the pandemic.
Those who have 2 doses are seemingly more protected, particularly when it comes to ICU admissions, the need for oxygen, and severity of disease.
Kenya has already vaccinated close to 3 million people, with AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, and Moderna being the available vaccines. Sinopharm and Pfizer vaccine doses are expected in the country before the end of September. Purity Museo, Prime Edition.
Thank you very much, Purity Museo. Now let's focus on this drought situation in the country. And as the situation continues to afflict families in 10 counties in the country, a community group in WAJIR County is reaping the benefits of farming in the desert. The group of 10 members, called Nasri, located just 6 kilometers in the outskirts of WAJIR town, has embarked on vegetable farming, which includes kales and spinach, bringing out a contrary picture on the prevailing harsh conditions the region is currently facing, as Nancy Okware now reports.
WAJIR is among the counties most affected by the ongoing drought, with herders forced to drive their animals far in search of pasture. Unlike in the past, Water is available in various community boreholes. But the commodity has to be ferried close to the animals, as far as 50 kilometers away, because they are too weak to return for the drink. With the government having declared the drought a national disaster, communities are coming together like never before in concerted efforts to reduce losses through livestock deaths. Against all odds, Nursery Farmers Group has managed to plant a variety of vegetables ranging from kales, spinach and capsicum.
Hii shamba unaiona, mara ya kwanza tulikuwa tunabeba kama haba 10. Na kifungo kimoja ikanauza shilingi 50. Haba 10 ni shilingi 500. Lakini sahi tunaiuza, tunapeleka kama haba 20 kwa soko, tunapata shilingi 1000. Hiyo 1000 transport ndio utalipa ya gari, because hapa tuko almost 5 km kwa town.
Funded by the government through the Kenya Development Response to Displacement Impacts Project, the group says the crop has come in handy during this dry season.
Tunaona manufaa mzuri sana, tunatoa mboga hapo, tunauza soko. Zingine tunapeana hata tunauzwa Baswene.
Amid the difficult conditions, the group, through a community-based agronomist, has found ways to sustain remarkable farming in unlikely conditions.
We can use the drip irrigation, whereby that drip irrigation, it gives the plant direct to the root system. So there's no, you will going to reduce the excess water that you are using before, so that you save the leakage of the nutrient.
Despite the thriving crop standing out in this arid area, human-wildlife conflict still remains a major challenge, with animals such as giraffes invading their farm on several occasions. Despite the harsh conditions in this part of Wajir County, this community group in Shelete village has managed to embrace farming and is now reaping the benefits amid the drought. Nancy Okware, Prime Edition from Wajir County.
Great reporting there by Nancy Okware, encouraging us as a country, especially now that drought has been declared a national disaster, some alternatives that farmers can explore in those regions. Now on to matters politics. Opposition leader Raila Odinga says his quest to lead the nation is driven by the need for unity and stability. Speaking at NGEI shopping center in Limuru, Kiambu County, Raila said Kenya is yet to realize the vision of its founding fathers, which included, among others, fighting poverty and diseases.
Raila, who was in NGEI shopping center in Limuru, Kiambu County, said it is a mission to ensure that the country remains united, peaceful and economically stable in the post-2022 elections. The opposition leader said Kenya is still struggling to deal with issues that were bedeviling this nation 57 years ago, yet his peers across the globe made significant strides.
Tunataka kuleta Kenya ambayo kuna usawa. Waanzilishi wa taifa letu walisema wanataka Kenya ambayo iko na haki. Ndio sababu kwa mji wetu ya taifa tunasema Mungu bariki nchi yetu ya Kenya. Haki iwe ngao na mlinzi. Tukae kwa ndugu, amani na uhuru. Sababu tulisema tubadilishe mwendo.
Elsewhere, businessman Jimmy Wanjigi, who has shown interest in seeking the presidency through the ODM party, has termed the move by the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority to further burden Kenyans with high cost of fuel as shameful. Wanjigi, who spoke after a meeting with the business community from Ruiru and Githurai in Ruiru town, said it was disheartening to burden Kenyans with high cost of fuel at this most difficult time.
This is the highest shame on earth. The food cost, food basket ya Mkenya, yani bei ya chakula, bei ya mafuta. In the world, that is the second highest cost.
All right, and clearly, like I said, reactions will be varied, but the final decision is actually inside the National Assembly and the Senate. There's 8 shillings will start reflecting on the things you consume in your house.
Yeah, the bread, the what, you know, every time fuel prices go up, it replicates across all these basic commodities.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's all going into, you know, the mwananchi's basket at the end of the day. So this noise that people are making about this is actually because of you, Mwananchi. But anyway, it's a matter of wait and see how this is going. But
interesting. I would like to see what Senate says when they meet the two cabinet secretaries, knowing very well that they had an opportunity. Again, the Finance Committee in the National Assembly dealt with this. So yeah, the blame lies squarely in that floor.
All right. A lot is still coming up on the other side of the break. Remember, we are focusing on matters CBC. Tonight, John Jacob Kioria is going to be engaging James Torome, the Sec-Gen of KUSNET, after the break, and much more also lined up, so do stay with us.
Ya watu wa KANU, viongozi wa KANU na wafanyi biashara kukuomba utusikize katika mambo ambayo tutakwambia hivi leo. Tumepata habari ambao imesema ya kwamba kuna mpango ambao uko wa kuangusha serikali ambao ilichaguliwa na wananchi wote wa Kenya na vile vile waliochagua president wa Kenya. Sisi tuko tayari kabisa, na kwa hivyo msije mkababaika mkisikia kama kiko hatachiura ipigira ng'ombe inyonego nasema ng'ombe, lakini ng'ombe tu anatia mdomoni anakunywa maji. Na kama mjuavyo, serikali macho yake mengi, macho yake inaona mbalimbali. Hata kule mlalako mifunguni ya vitanda vyenu serikali iko huko ndani.
Tayari bibi, vita na vianze.
Leo kwa uongozi wako niko tayari.
Kama una maneno ya kuniambia niambie. Una nenda.
Hivi nikuulize wewe, wanichukuliaje wewe? Nina wazimu mimi?
Hilo ndilo swali nataka mimi na wewe tujadili.
Na yeye mwenyewe lia nini? Hana hata paka.
Si ndio hivyo?
Tunaenda kuketi na kufunga macho tena.
Na kupeleka leo mahali pazuri sana.
Kenya's journey to industrialization has been long and tedious. Since 1954, when the colonial government formed the East African Colonial Commission to try and attract more investment into the agriculture sector, to Sessional Paper number 2 of 1996 on industrial transformation. This has been indeed a long journey.
We can't walk away from the journey of industrialization in Kenya. Whatever challenges we have faced, whatever environment that we find ourselves in, it is a worthy focus and goal.
This week on Inside Government, we talk industrialization matters. CS Betty Maina right here on KBC Channel 1.
Everything in the South is already in place. She'll be pushed into a corner.
Something severe must have happened. Otherwise, Prince Chung wouldn't give up the chance to meet with His Majesty.
It's Governor Xu. He's proposing a marriage to Master. Master has already agreed and is going to marry you off to Governor Xu's son.
This marriage will make us much closer. Mr. Hong, this almost feels predestined.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now, senators are now demanding disciplinary action against 4 media outlets which allegedly published manipulated video recordings of Senate proceedings contrary to provisions of the standing orders. In the controversial video which went viral on Tuesday evening, Murang'a Senator Irungu KANG'ATA attended part of the sitting virtually but is portrayed to have allegedly logged in from a pub, a claim he denies. Ben Chumba with that report.
Mr. Speaker, I'm there.
Where?
Mr. Speaker.
Oh, okay.
Online.
Where are you?
I'm in my office, Mr. Speaker.
No. That's not an office, Senator KANG'ATA. I'm sorry, we can't allow that.
The original video of Tuesday's Senate proceedings, which senators say was manipulated to discredit Murang'a Senator Irungu KANG'ATA.
It appears somebody manipulated yesterday's Senate proceedings and gave a false voicing over which inserted somebody purportedly saying that I was seated in a certain bar.
First of all, manipulate numbers, you manipulate a voice, the next time they are going to manipulate you. They are going to show you without clothes, but with your voice. That's how dangerous it is.
The live recording of KBC to be released and circulated to these offending media houses to replace the fake news that is circulating in a viral manner.
During Wednesday's sitting, KANG'ATA dismissed the allegations and demanded that editors of 4 media outlets be summoned before the Powers and Privileges Committee of the Senate.
Speaker Sabina Joy is a notorious dirty place in the history of Nairobi from time immemorial. It is not just a bar. And it's a house of sin, Mr. Speaker.
Once they picked up that story, they gave it legitimacy. You have the power to punish the editors of those 4 media stations.
Senators further want the media organizations barred from covering parliament proceedings for flouting the standing orders. Senate Speaker Ken Lusaka will rule on the matter next week.
I want to ask you to allow me to make a detailed ruling on Tuesday, and I was saying the ruling is going to serve as an example to other media houses who manipulate or want to play around with the proceedings.
Ben Chumba, Prime Edition.
All right, and now as the country is tightening the loose ends in implementing the competency-based curriculum, the interview we had told you earlier on how the learners with special needs are being captured in the competency-based curriculum begins right now. John Jacob Kioria, he's on the other side of the studio. He's going to be engaging the Sec-Gen of KUSNET, James Torome. It's over to you, Kioria.
All right, and thank you very much, Serfine, for that introduction. And in studio, the Secretary General of the Kenya Union of Special Needs Education Teachers, KUSNET. That was an organization or a union that was recognized somewhere this year, early this year. Of course, there was debate between itself and NAT whether they should be allowed to operate. But of course, through recognition by the Teacher Service Commission and the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, now they are a union representing teachers who are teaching children with special needs. Mr. James Torome is with us in studio. Karibu sana, Katibu.
Thank you very much.
You're very much welcome. And we'll talk about this union and some of the welfare that you're pushing for your members a little bit later. But for now, explain to us how the CBC being implemented in the other schools is different, or are there any distinctions between a CBC and what is being learned in schools that have special needs?
Okay, thank you for your concern.
Yeah.
As a union, we are saying that what is supposed to be done in the CBC in the special schools, our minister, that is the Cabinet Secretary, Mr. Professor Makoha, he keep on pushing all the stakeholders away. And we are telling him that education matter, and especially for special needs education, it's not a theater room where you enclose yourself and you operate the wrong patient. So it's supposed to engage completely the major stakeholder, not selecting some of the
and we'll get to the point of stakeholders. I'm sorry to cut you short, but I wanted you first of all to create, to paint a picture for us. How different is it, the CBC that is being, taught in the other schools, and the CBC in the special schools, the special needs schools?
You see, the curriculum which is used by the regular schools, in special schools, it is adapted.
It is adapted.
There is some changes which are done in that curriculum.
Okay.
And this is where now we are saying, the parents who belong to these learners are not fully sensitized. Our teachers in the special schools are not being given the privilege of moving ahead for the training which is being given to the regular schools. The special schools all the time is others.
They're still being classified as others.
As others.
Okay.
The major effort or the energy which the government is supposed to push on the area of special needs, we are not seeing it from our cabinet secretary.
Hold it right there, because listening to PS Joan and the cabinet secretary for education, sometime last, I think a year, in 2019 specifically, I had them say special needs children will be catered for absolutely in this syllabus or in this curriculum, because what we have seen previously is where they've been left out by the other curriculum and they're lagging behind. And their admission was this CBC is going to cure some of these problems. You're saying it is not curing.
We are not fighting the CBC.
Okay.
What we are fighting, it is the SNE teachers, the SNE learners, and the parents who are being left when the train have already left the station.
Playing catch-up.
Now the playing catch-up. This is what now we are asking. Let the CS be serious with the real stakeholders in special education. Don't go and get a group of people who are claiming they are the stakeholders in the special needs while they are not. If teachers are not represented in whichever meeting you are calling, then who is representing these special needs learners?
There was a training before we rolled out CBC, or before CBC was rolled out. There was training for teachers, and I remember meetings happening around. Your friends in the Kenya National Union of Teachers were lobbying their members, some to attend, others not to attend. Are you saying there was no training done for special needs education teachers?
It's not adequate. It's not adequate.
Okay.
Because currently, even right now we are seated here, there are teachers who are not trained in handling the new curriculum. So they are still now in the mentality of the older curriculum.
Okay.
Now, when will they catch up and things are moving?
That's quite interesting, because the picture you get is that there's no adequate preparation, and that is what you're saying. There was no adequate preparation for the teachers, so to teach the CBC effectively to children with special needs. Yes. But I would want to ask you, what is adequate according to you?
Adequate, it's proper preparation.
Proper preparation.
And now proper preparation, we know very well, these learners are in congested rooms. What is the minister doing? We are saying in the regular schools, he's giving funds for the expansion. But for the special schools, we are not seeing him giving the funds for the expansion of these rooms. And the learners are being brought in these rooms. This is now a challenge of the teacher. Remember, these learners, they need a room which is spacious. But you'll get that the international ratio, for example, for the visually impaired, is 1:1. But you get a teacher handling 20 learners who are visually impaired.
All right. But, what are the categories that you have under the special needs?
Okay, the categories are so many, but I'll just do brief. We have the physically challenged, we have the hearing, we have the deaf, and we have the autism, and the other medical conditions which we classify them now as a special needs, as the albinism, which now also affect the visually impaired.
All right. You say, you talk about infrastructure, because much of what I've heard you say, you've talked about the space in these learning institutions. That's an infrastructure problem, and I'm sure it also affects your colleagues in the regular teaching of the CBC. What I would want to know from you is probably, other than infrastructure, is there any other challenge that special needs education teachers are facing as they implement CBC?
Okay, we are now moving from analog to digital. And when you go to these schools, especially for the visually impaired, they are still using the braille machine, which you may think that is a tailoring station. We need now the modern machines which now they can use. You go to a class and you think this is a textile industry. Everywhere. And we are talking of the digital era.
There's also a problem when I listen to you colleagues from the regular implementation of CBC. And the problem is, other than just infrastructure, even the planning in terms of rollout. For example, right now it is not even yet agreed whether a junior secondary school will be stationed in primary schools or in secondary schools, and whether we have even built capacity for the same. Are those challenges you're also facing as SNE teachers?
Okay, the other bigger problem which you are facing as the SNE teachers, it is the shortage. The shortage of teachers is so high.
There's a shortage of teachers.
There is a big shortage of special needs education teachers in this country, which now that one is supposed now to be addressed by the Teacher Service Commission. And what now we can tell the Teacher Service Commission, there are so many teachers in the regular schools who are trained in special needs education. These teachers now are supposed to be deployed in the special schools and the special unit for them now to bridge the gap. But those teachers are still in the regular schools.
Let me take you back to a question I had asked you earlier, because listening to the minister and the PS, their argument was the other curriculum, children living with disabilities or the special needs were being left behind. This one is more, about creating a form for yourself. And they were saying this is the best, and this one will ensure that there's equality between the ones that don't have disability and these ones that are living with disabilities. Are you saying it is too late? Can, even with playing catch up, can we help them?
It's not too late. Okay. And we are not fighting the CBC. What we are saying, let us be engaged fully.
All right.
Let us be engaged fully. Because what now we know, the crisis which were there about now the testing, it will no longer be there. A learner will be tested on what that learner can be able to do. Remember the other time, all the time when the national exam was being released, majority of the schools which were ranked last were from special schools. But this time now, we are happy about the CBC because that ranking will not be there.
Okay, not fighting CBC, you're just asking for enhancement. Just the other day, you had a CBA proposal with SRC, and I understand you're asking for a 15,000 special allowance. There was guidance allowance of 30,000, and you're asking for 50 to 60% salary increase for your members. How far has that gone?
You see, now everything is not lost.
Okay.
Everything is not lost, because after the advisory of the Salary and Remuneration Commission, and we met with the employer and we agreed that the proposal should be shelved, waiting the economy to recover. Immediately the economy will recover. We are still advising our members. Our proposal have not gone to the drain.
All right. There were rumors that SRC had ceded some ground in terms of accepting some of the proposals you've made. Is it true? Did they accept all, or did they accept some?
At this juncture, we cannot clearly specify which allowance they scrapped, which allowance they approved, but what we know, back behind our minds, our proposal went to our employer, and our employer have no problem with the proposal. And that's where we are focused.
All right. As we wind up, what is the relationship between Kenya National Union of Teachers and KUSNET? Because from my understanding is that they were previously opposed to you being registered as a union. After your recognition by SRC and TSC, how are you relating?
The relationship is not so badly now.
It's not as bad as it was then?
It's not badly now as it were during the registration and now coming up to get the recognition agreement. But what we are asking, KNUT was registered in a paper. We are also registered in a paper, and all those two papers are valid. They respect us, we respect them. We are within the SNE. They are within the line of the regular. Let them concentrate within their line. We concentrate on our line. There will be no conflict.
I would imagine that your interests converge at some point. Do you consult?
At this juncture, we don't consult because each organization is independent.
Okay. Even when your interests are converging, you don't consult?
We don't consult at this juncture.
Okay, at this juncture. I'll give you a moment to say your last word on this camera before we wind up. Your parting shot as we wind up.
Okay, all in all, we are telling all our members across the country, be vigilant, keep washing your hands, wear the mask, fumigate all the institution, keep care of the children, and engage with the parents, especially the parents with the children with the special needs. Finally, the EAC, that is the Education Assessment Resource Center, that is the Curriculum Support Officer stroke SNE. Let them move out of the county director's offices and they go back to the EAC to work there. Because now we are seeing they have turned to be education officers, but not people to go and assess learners with disability across the country.
But interesting, and of course, as you tell your teachers to take caution, it's also important we remind them that get vaccinated too, because the vaccines are now available. Rush to the nearest vaccination center and get vaccinated so that, you know, life goes back to normal and they can continue doing what they love most, and that is teaching, particularly children with special needs. That's why we wind up this edition of Extra Mile. We take a breather, but we come back with more news lined up for you, including business with Cynthia Nyamai, and later on sports with Karen Kibet.
Usitegemee kupata jino lenye afya kwenye mdomo uliooza. Usikubali kupokea zawadi ya nguo kutoka kwa mtu aliyeuchi. Mapenzi ni kufaana, nifae ni kufae. Hisani ni njia mbili, nipe nikupe. Ila ni muhimu kufahamu kuwa sio binadamu wote watakushukuru hata watendeapo mema. Ukitaka thawabu kutoka mbinguni, we tenda wema tu, uondoke.
Ili kupata skiza tune ya pumzi ya busara, bonyeza star 811 star 815 hash. Bonyeza star 811 star 815 hash.
Alikuwa wanapigana mzee. Oh, we are just having peaceful talks. Good. You've outdone yourself, Mark.
Hawa ndugu wako na vituko.
It's good that both of us are here.
Rent mnalipaje?
Good evening, welcome to Prime Edition Business. I am Cynthia Nyamai. Now, Talo Oil has redesigned its crude oil development project in Kenya that will see the company investing an additional 340 billion shillings. The company says the increase in the expected capital expenditure is due to additional wells to be drilled and larger diameter crude oil export pipeline. As her big side narrates, Talo Oil, which is scouting for a strategic investor, projects to mine 585 million barrels of crude oil in Kenya.
Oil started operations in Kenya in the year 2010 and in early 2012 announced that it had struck crude oil in Turkana. The company has been in the market scouting for a strategic investor and hopes to seal such a deal before the final investment decision is submitted to the government before the end of this year. In its first half investor briefing, the company says it plans to produce about 585 million barrels of crude oil in Kenya. Tullow Oil has also revised crude oil development project for Kenya and projects to invest an additional 340 billion shillings in its upstream activities as well as the pipeline between Turkana and Lamu. In a statement, the company says the increase in capex from the previous design is due to a bigger facility processing capacity, additional wells to be drilled and larger diameter crude oil export pipeline, which delivers 30% increase in resources whilst lowering the unit cost to $22 per barrel from the previously $31 per barrel. It says the revised development concept allows greater flexibility in adding oil fields into production without significant modification to the project's infrastructure. The firm has announced that the 825-kilometer pipeline that will transport the crude oil from Turkana to the port of Lamu will be heated and buried to avoid any disruption in the long term. Further, Tullow Oil plans to carry out more exploration drilling in the Blocks 10BB and 13T licenses as well as exploring potentials in Blocks 10BA and 12B. Reporting for Primetime News, my name is Hibak Said.
The Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority has entered into a collaboration with the Office of the Auditor General to identify unclaimed assets in public institutions and have them surrendered to the authority. Under the deal, the Auditor of Generals will ascertain the extent the public agencies have been reuniting unclaimed financial assets with rightful owners, as well as identify and surrender them to the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. Here are the details of this story and other stories in our corporate briefs.
A survey done in the year 2018 estimated that 241 billion shillings in unclaimed financial assets was still unreported to the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority by public agencies and private firms. The report showed that about 477,112 public and private entities hold these assets in their books. To help unearth unclaimed assets in public institutions, the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority has signed a deal with the Office of the Auditor General to identify unclaimed assets and have them surrendered. Meanwhile, 214 farmer groups in Kericho County have received 116 million shillings in grants from World Bank in partnership with the government under the Kenya Climate Smart Agricultural Project. In addition, motorcycles have been availed to improve mobility of field agricultural extension officers to reach more farmers as well as support market data collection.
Tumetoa pikipiki. Hiyo pikipiki itasaidia nyinyi sasa, hata vile mayai mumesema mumepata mayai mingi, itasaidia nyinyi kwa marketing.
Finally, potato farmers in Nyandarua County are calling on the government to consider buying the farm produce from the area for distribution to Kenyans facing hunger. The farmers say the recently introduced Irish potato regulations of 2019 has seen traders and transporters avoiding to buy the farm produce that is now rotting in farms.
Si wakulima ndio tumeachiliwa juu, hatuna wakutunulia chakula na ndio kazi yetu, hatuna nyingine. Sasa chakula zetu kimekomana kiko kwa shamba.
For more than the 1 billion iPhone enthusiasts around the world, no product unveiling is more anticipated than the Apple Inc. annual reveal of its newest lineup of smartphones. Apple has introduced 4 iPhone 13 model with some minor enhancements, including a faster processor, better camera, longer battery life, and nicer displays. Here are some of the details of this and other stories in our business roundup.
The new iPhone models are similar in design to 2020's phones, other than a smaller notch for the front-facing camera on top of the screen, and they start at the same price points. The 2 Pro phones will also have a higher quality video recording feature and a smoother scrolling display that updates more frequently, along with the ability to expand storage to 1 terabyte, double the capacity of the biggest option last year. The new iPhone 13, which can film portrait mode videos with a depth of field effect, lets users edit this effect after shooting. After last year's big 5G upgrade, the incremental nature of this year's improvements may be a letdown to some and offer little incentive to upgrade. Meanwhile, Australian graphic design business Canva has become one of the world's biggest privately owned companies after being valued at $40 billion. The online design platform said it had grown during the pandemic as more customers worked from home. Canva provides design templates for people to make everything from greeting cards to posters, resumes, and calendars. The firm, which was founded in Sydney in 2013, revealed a fresh $200 million round of private equity investment, which makes it one of the world's most valuable startups. Finally, Greater Bay Airlines, a newly launched Hong Kong-based carrier, hopes to start operations in late October or early November after it obtained regulatory approval and the license necessary to operate passenger flights. The airline plans to apply the permit to fly to Beijing Capital International Airport as its inaugural flight from Hong Kong to the Chinese mainland. In the fourth quarter of this year, the airline will also begin international operations from Hong Kong to Singapore, Bangkok, and the resort of Phuket in Thailand. The airline targets to fly more than 40 cities in the Chinese mainland, including Beijing, Shanghai, and some smaller cities.
That's it for business today. Up next, sports with Karen, and she has some breaking news coming up shortly.
News just in is that the Football Kenya Federation and Harambee Stars coach Jacob Ghost Mulee have reached a decision to part ways by mutual consent, effective immediately. This story, we will be bringing it to you in detail tomorrow to find out the reason behind Jacob Ghost Mulee's firing. Now, on to what we had prepared to you today is that the national women's volleyball team Malkia Strikers have qualified for the semi-finals of the African Nations Volleyball Championships after beating Tunisia by 3 sets at the Kigali Arena in Rwanda. The team, coached by Paul Bitok, easily won the match in straight sets of 25-20, 25-19, 25-21 and boosted their chances to qualifying for the World Championships, which will be held in Russia next year. The men's team finished 9th in the tournament. The Kenya men's deaf football team lost 4-2 to Mali in their second game of the Africa Deaflympic Ball Games qualifiers at the Nyayo National Stadium. The loss follows another defeat at the hands of Senegal on Saturday, where Kenya lost 3-1.
The West Africans dominated the game with the keeper Diamane Kamare denying the home team what appeared to be clear chances. It was no business as usual for the home side as Mamadou Koulibaly notched home a close-range shot in the first minute. Mali extended their lead in the 37th minute when striker Nosa Keita Dida headed home a cross from Koulibaly. The Group A match saw the hosts trail 2-0 at the break. The Kenyans piled immense pressure in the second half, forcing 2 quick penalties converted by midfielder Bashir Yahe. The 2 goals appeared to re-energize the home side, but this was short-lived as the Malians netted 2 more goals through Seydou Siloma and Mamadou Koulibaly, who sealed the 4-2 win. This was Kenya's second straight loss after their 3-1 defeat to Senegal. Frederick Mwoki for Prime Edition.
Moving on, World Athletics announced the postponement of the championships of the World Cross Country to 2023 due to COVID-19 travel restrictions in Australia. The Athletics Kenya Vice Chairman Paul Mutui has said this is a blow for Kenyan athletes who are set to feature in next year's World Cross Country Championships.
Upslope on the Musgard Museum, the pace, the speed.
Australia has some of the tightest restrictions in the world aimed at preventing the spread of the novel coronavirus, including limiting the number of arrivals and imposing a mandatory 14-day hotel quarantine on those entering the country. World Athletics said in a statement that the quarantine requirements were not practical for a one-day event.
It's a big blow because, as I said, it's an event that many athletes gauge themselves, use it as a kind of build-up event. It's a very big blow, but then because they have decided on it that way, then we have no option other than accepting it, and then we embark on other kind of exercise and events for the season.
The championships, which had been scheduled for February 19th in Bathurst, New South Wales, would now take place on Feb 18th, 2023 at the same venue. Frederick Mwoki for Prime Edition.
The basketball Lionesses traveling squad to the FIBA Women's Afrobasket Championship that starts this weekend in Cameroon has been named by head coach George Mayenga. The squad comprises Rose Ouma, Victoria Reynolds, Natalie Akinyi, Melissa Akinyi, Jemima Knight, Selina Okumu, Georgia Adhiambo, Masi Wanyama, Brenda Wasuda, Vilma Owino, Christina Akinyi, and Ivy Opicho. The team leaves the country tonight for Cameroon. Kenya are in Group A with hosts Cameroon and Cape Verde. They face the hosts on Saturday, followed by Cape Verde on Sunday.
Wasuda Akinyi neza cyane koranga. What a game! Mbere muri FIBA mwaka w'ibiciro 30 na kanumva ko nigio. Mbere muri FIBA mwaka w'ibiciro 30 na kanumva ko nigio. Solaya ya Misiri zamugira ahora ekipera neza ahora ekipera.
Chelsea opened their Champions League title defense with a 1-0 victory over Zenit St. Petersburg at Stamford Bridge as Bayern Munich claimed a dominant 3-0 opening game victory at Barcelona. Juventus launched their campaign by beating Malmo 3-0, while Manchester United conceded a dramatic stoppage time goal to lose 2-1 to Young Boys.
Is lying between Chelsea.
The 8 of the shot.
There's Sibatu with a chance. Oh, what a gift! What a gift! And Jordan Sibatu
here in the Estadio de la Ceramica, and they have been rewarded.
8 more matches will be played tonight with PSG, Manchester City, Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid, Liverpool, and Borussia Dortmund all in action. Hassan Ali Hussein, Lunchtime News, Sports.
Rakitic.
We had for you right here at the sports desk. Don't forget, I earlier told you that news just in is that the Harambee Stars coach Jacob Ghost Mule has parted ways on mutual consent as the coach of Harambee Stars. Now there will be no further comment from FKF until a new appointment is made. So we will be bringing you all that story tomorrow.
No comment.
I know, no comment.
I think that's why you say Ghost has been ghosted.
Ghost has been ghosted.
And two other gentlemen was gone home with him. Well, Harambee Stars instability. I think they're supposed to play Mali for the World Cup qualifier.
Yes.
We don't know whether they're ready or they're not.
We will see.
All right, time for us to wind up Prime Edition. And from me, it's a good night. Of course, up next is your weekly dose of rave.
The rave coming up, so do stand by for that in just a few minutes. My name is Serfine Achieng. Our sign language interpreter has been Anne Wangeshi. Have a good night.
My name is Karen Kibet. Good night.
Beauty College.
Vera Beauty and Fashion College with branches in Nairobi, Eldoret, Thika and Meru. Did you know that we are a TVET approved institution? We offer courses in fashion design, interior design in soft furnishing, event decoration, flower arrangement, event planning, hairdressing, barbering,